Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. The dense fog rolled through the quiet streets of Lawrenceburg, Indiana, obscuring the normally bustling activity of this small town. On a dreary autumn morning in 2004, the sun fought to break through, casting an eerie glow over the damp pavement. The air was thick with anticipation. A stillness enveloped the community as its residents were about to be rocked by unforgiving tragedy. In a modest home on Cherry Street, the Perkins family was just beginning their day. The scent of toasted bread wafted through the air as 14-year-old Emily Perkins sat at the kitchen table. Earbuds firmly in place, her eyes glued to a magazine. Outside, the leaves rustled, whispering secrets as they fell to the ground. But in that moment, serenity was blissfully uninterrupted. All at once, the peace shattered. A frantic knock echoed through the house, sharp and persistent. Mrs. Perkins, wiping her hands on a dish towel, opened the door to find Officer Jones standing there, his expression grave. A knot tightened in her stomach as she caught sight of the 2 patrol cars parked outside, blue and red lights strobing softly behind closed eyelids. "Ma'am, I need you to remain calm," Officer Jones said, voice steady but low. "There's been an incident at the high school." The words hung heavy in the air, an unthinkable weight that pressed down on the young girl and her mother. As Mrs. Perkins gripped the doorframe for support, the officer continued, "Your daughter's friend, Jessica, she's been found. She's gone." The world around them went silent, leaving only the pounding of Emily's heart and the panic spreading like wildfire through her mind. No one could have foreseen that a seemingly ordinary day would spiral into a nightmare that would haunt Lawrenceburg for years to come. The victim. Jessica Coates was known as the bright spark in any room. Her laughter resonated through the halls of Lawrenceburg High, a melodic symphony that softened the edges of teenage angst. With tousled chestnut hair that shimmered like autumn foliage and an infectious smile, Jessica had an innate talent for making everyone feel seen and heard. But on the fateful morning of October 25, 2004, the joy she exuded would become a distant memory, a haunting echo in the hearts of those who loved her. As news of Jessica's demise reverberated through the school, stunned students huddled in groups, whispering behind clasped hands. Teachers struggled to maintain composure, their own faces betraying shock and disbelief. Principal Lawson called for an emergency assembly, his voice quivering, backed by the heavy weight of grief that permeated the air. He spoke with care, reassuring the students of their safety, but his words fell flat against the backdrop of confusion and sorrow. Meanwhile, Jessica's parents, Alan and Brenda Coates, were grappling with the surreal nature of their loss. Their daughter had always been the focus of their dreams, a talented artist. She had plans to study fine arts in college, yet their sun-drenched future was immediately shrouded in a relentless fog. In their cozy living room, scattered with Jessica's sketches and awards, the Coates family sat in a numbing silence. At school, Emily Perkins sat in her homeroom, a close friend of Jessica's, grappling with the bitter sting of emptiness. Their laughter shared over lunch, snap stories filled with inside jokes, it all felt like a cruel mirage now. As she stared blankly at the desk, images of Jessica's vivacious spirit paraded through her mind. Spontaneous road trips, deep talks under the stars, and a camaraderie that had flourished over the years. Now that mosaic was shattered, leaving behind disarray and heartbreak. Back at the Coates' home, The phone rang incessantly. Friends and family extended their condolences, but all that enveloped them was an overwhelming void. They had lost not just a daughter, but a piece of their own souls. Little did they know, the search for answers was only just beginning. And those very answers would unveil dark secrets that would alter the course of their lives forever. The crime scene. The morning fog had begun to dissipate, yet the atmosphere remained thick with the tension of uncertainty as the sun crept higher into the sky, preceded by a flurry of patrol cars. Detective James Holloway arrived at Lawrenceburg High, his mind racing through the protocols he needed to follow. The call had come in not long after the sun rose, the urgency palpable as the somber words of loss were echoed back to him. The body of a young girl had been discovered in the art classroom. I shrieked as he made his way through the echoing halls. The usual sounds of laughter and chatter were replaced by subdued murmurs and the shuffle of feet. Students, pale and wide-eyed in the wake of horror, stood together in tight-knit groups, seeking comfort in one another's presence. Detective Holloway pushed further into the school, a knot forming in his stomach as he approached the room where the tragic discovery had been made. Inside, the air was chill, an unsettling contrast to the warmth of sunlight streaming through the windows. A cluster of officers stood at the threshold, faces lined with grim resolve. A flicker of pain crossed Holloway's expression as he took in the scene. Jessica lay motionless on the floor, framed by the flurry of art supplies that had once represented her passions. The vibrant canvases, now untouched and forlorn, seemed to echo a lost vibrance. Forensic teams moved with methodical precision, sketching the area, taking photographs, and collecting evidence, though all Holloway could focus on was the haunting stillness of the young girl before him. She appeared peaceful, almost asleep, but death's uncanny grip told a different story. Pockets of crushed pastels glittered around her, as if mocking the beauty she could no longer create. The detective crouched near her, noting the position of her arms and the subtle smudge of chalk dust on her fingertips, a final imprint of her artistry. It appeared that Jessica had been in the middle of working on something when her life was stolen. Holloway collected his thoughts, the investigator's brain sifting through the timeline. Witness statements would be crucial. Friends, classmates, anyone who might have seen her last. Before leaving the room, he paused, casting a lingering gaze back at Jessica. A set of questions stirred in his mind, each more uncomfortable than the last. Who would commit such a heinous act against a girl whose greatest crime was to dream brightly? As the forensic team began to gather evidence, one thing became clear: this case would not only seek justice for Jessica, but peel back the layers of secrets hidden beneath the surface of a seemingly tranquil community. The hunt for truth had begun, and time would soon reveal whether they were prepared for what lay ahead. The early investigation. Detective Holloway left the art room, the heavy atmosphere following him like a shroud. He stepped into the nearest classroom, where anxious teachers had congregated, their expressions a mixture of fear, disbelief, and desperate curiosity. Taking a deep breath, he knew he had to deliver the grim reality of the situation. "Listen up, everyone," he began, his voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of weight. "This isn't going to be easy. We're dealing with a tragedy that has shaken this community to its core. I need your cooperation as we navigate through this." The teachers nodded, a palpable tension settling in the air. Holloway called for a meeting with the school administration and counselors, determined to establish a clear communication channel. They discussed immediate concern show to handle the press, the need for support for the students, and most critically, how to piece together Jessica's final hours. As whispers spread throughout the school, he knew students would soon ascend from shock to relentless inquiry, and they needed to be prepared. Once the meeting concluded, Holloway gathered his team and began interviews with those closest to Jessica: friends, classmates, teachers, anyone who could provide insight into her recent behaviors and relationships. Emily Perkins was at the top of the list. Not only had she been Jessica's confidante, but she also knew the rhythms of teenage life that typically eluded adults. When he sat down with Emily in a quiet corner of the school library, her eyes brimmed with tears. "I just don't understand. Jess was the sweetest person. Who would hurt her?" she asked, voice cracking under the weight of heartbreak. Holloway took a careful approach, gauging her reactions as she spoke. "What can you tell me about her life, friends? Any recent changes?" he inquired. Emily wiped her eyes, collecting herself. She had to be strong. She was excited about her art competition coming up. She was always drawing. Lately, though, she mentioned feeling like someone was following her. "At first, I thought she was joking," Emily admitted, her voice wavering as she searched for the right words. "She said she noticed a guy at school just watching her. I thought it was weird, but she brushed it off." Holloway's brows knitted together as he listened. A new thread began to weave itself through the tapestry of the investigation. The unsettling notion that someone might have been stalking Jessica seeped into his thoughts. As they continued, Emily's revelations revealed a world Jessica had navigated silently, filled with complexities that might have gone unnoticed by those closest to her. That evening, as Holloway returned to the precinct, he felt the weight of Emily's words settle heavily on his shoulders. They were no longer dealing with just grief. They were in the trenches of a potential menace. The investigation was spiraling beyond the confines of mere tragedy into something darker, and it became increasingly clear that deciphering Jessica's last days could unlock not just clues, but deeper fears lurking within the community itself. The dead ends. Days turned into an unyielding haze for Detective Holloway as the investigation progressed. Yet concrete leads continued to slip through their fingers like sand. As the news spread across town, tips flooded, in each voice earnest, yet each trail led to another dead end. Holloway sifted through the throng of calls, knowing that empathy could only take them so far. They needed facts, evidence, something tangible to guide their way. One lead pointed them to an anonymous tip regarding a student named Kyle Jenkins, described as an outcast who had exhibited obsessive behavior in the art room. Holloway and his team began their interviews with past classmates. Wading through the murky waters of teenage relationships, they found conflicting stories. Some claimed Kyle had a crush on Jessica, while others insisted he had been fixated on her work, often lurking, then fading into the shadows. When they finally tracked him down, Holloway's intuition kicked in. Kyle sat alone in a small cafe, his fingers nervously tracing the rim of a coffee cup. He appeared startled by the detective's presence and stumbled through their conversation, his words a jumble of confusion and denial. "I didn't do anything. I liked her art. She was nice to me," he stammered, visibly shaken by the gravity of the situation. After a thorough review of his digital footprint, including social media accounts and text messages, Holloway found nothing incriminating. Kyle's story fell apart under scrutiny, but the absence of evidence to link him to Jessica's murder left the detective with little recourse. The more they probed into Kyle's life, the more Holloway felt they were chasing Shadows, fitting description, for a community struggling to find light in the aftermath of darkness. Next, they sought out surveillance footage from the school, hoping it would unveil any odd behaviors or encounters leading up to Jessica's death. Yet the cameras in the art department had mysteriously malfunctioned on the day she was found. It was as if someone or something had conspired to erase those final moments. The frustration mounted with every lenient encounter and unresolved lead. As the clock ticked, whispers of community speculation grew, feeding off the vacuums of information left by the investigation. Holloway could sense the pressure intensifying, not just to bring justice for Jessica, but to soothe a town deeply riled by fear and uncertainty. The hauntings of dead ends loomed over them like dark clouds, threatening to drown their progress beneath an avalanche of despair. Frustrated but resolute, Holloway rallied his team, brainstorming fresh perspectives, clinging to the hope that they would pierce through the fog of confusion and reveal the truth. Too many small-town secrets had been woven into the fabric of this community over time now. They just needed to unravel them, one thread at a time, to piece together a narrative that made sense of this senseless loss. The clock was ticking, and Jessica's voice needed to be heard again. A break in the case. The weight of pressure pressing down on Detective Holloway had become nearly unbearable. Just when the stagnation of the case began to feel insurmountable, he received a nudge from an unexpected avenue, a call from the forensics lab. They had been analyzing Jessica's belongings, specifically her sketchbook filled with a collection of artwork that reflected her life and thoughts. There it was. The parrot was a pivotal clue lurking within the pages. The forensic artist discovered a small but distinct smudge of what looked like paint mixed with a specific brand of charcoal combination, often used by local graffiti artists known for their unique style and tagging. It wasn't just the art that caught Holloway's attention. It was a particular piece, a crudely drawn emblem that included initials intertwined with a heart. The initials matched those of a student who had a reputation for defiance in the school and a few run-ins with the law. Eager to delve deeper, Holloway contacted Officer Sarah Delaney, an up-and-coming detective with a knack for connecting dots. Together they traced the artwork back to a local graffiti artist named Brandon Breeze McAllister. He had a checklist of violations to his name, including vandalism, and was known for frequenting the same spots where Jessica often sought inspiration for her work. As soon as they located him, Holloway and Delaney approached the back alley of a nearby coffee shop, where Breeze was spray painting an uncommissioned mural. The energy shifted palpably as they informed him of the investigation, watching the color drain from his face. Holloway's instincts kicked in. Something about Breeze's reaction, his overly defiant posture, mixed with fear signal and an undeniable tension in the air. Why would I hurt her? She was a great artist. She even complimented my work once, Breeze protested, defending himself vehemently. Holloway sensed a crack in the boy's bravado, sensing that the urgency of mourning had shuttled Breeze into a corner of vulnerability. Yet you were apparently seen near the school days before her death, Delaney interjected, narrowing her eyes. Holloway leaned in, recognizing the weight of the moment. You can help yourself by being honest with us, he urged. Did you see her? Did she mention feeling unsafe? Talk to us. For a long moment, the air hung thick with tension. Then, almost reluctant, he began to speak. Yeah, I saw her. She said someone was bothering her, but I didn't want to get involved. I just saw the guy hanging around her. His voice trailed off, disappointment and regret etched across his features. With a tangible sense of urgency, Holloway urged Breeze to recount more details. As he described the stranger his unsettling gaze, the way he lingered outside of art exhibits it, became evident that they were edging closer to the person who might be responsible for Jessica's death. Each new piece of the puzzle expanded the larger narrative surrounding Jessica's life, revealing fears and dangers that had been left hidden in the shadows. With their newfound leads in hand, Holloway stepped out into the cool evening air, adrenaline pumping through his veins. The road ahead was murky and uncharted, but now they had a name and a face, and for the first time in weeks, the path to justice felt a little clearer. The haunting echoes of Jessica's laughter were now accompanied by a promise they would not stop searching until her story was told. The suspect. The atmosphere in the precinct was electric as Detective Holloway and Officer Delaney reviewed their next steps in the investigation. They now had a name in the lingering gaze of a former student, Evan Cruz. Evan had been a known troublemaker, with a background steeped in juvenile offenses, and had a lingering reputation as a daunting presence around students, particularly those like Jessica's vibrant, artistic face that stood in stark contrast to his own brooding persona. Holloway and Delaney began the process of tracking down Evan. He hadn't been seen at school since the incident, and whispers of his whereabouts floated through the town like scattered leaves on the wind. Combining their efforts with local patrols, they finally pinpointed a likely abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, a place where Evan often congregated with others who shared his rebellious spirit. As they approached, the air hung heavy with the scent of decay and rust. Cobwebs adorned corners like forgotten memories, and the walls echoed with the ghosts of laughter long past. Holloway exchanged a knowing glance with Delaney. They had to tread carefully. This was not just a simple confrontation. They were walking into a potential powder keg. Inside, the dim light barely illuminated figures crouched in the shadows. Graffiti art sprawled across the crumbling surfaces of rebellion, etched in color amidst despair and neglect. As Holloway called out Evan's name, a tangible shift occurred. Figures began to move, some retreating further into the gloom, while Evan stood defiantly, his face caught between indignation and trepidation. "What do you want?" he grunted, attempting to appear aloof as he flicked a paint can in agitation. Holloway stepped closer, yet kept his posture relaxed. "We need to talk about Jessica Coates," he said, his tone firm but measured. Evan's eyes narrowed, the bravado momentarily slipping. "I don't know anything about her," he shot back. But there was a tremor beneath his veneer of confidence, like the hum of a live wire vibrating beneath steel. "We know you were around her," Delaney interjected, stepping forward. "She was scared, Evan. Did you have something to do with that?" For a brief moment, silence hung thick, punctured only by the sound of a paint can tumbling to the ground. I just wanted to show her my work. She was into art, right? I thought she'd see what I could do. Half the school knows I'm not just some loser." His frustration was palpably an effort to mask feelings of inadequacy that seemed to seep through in each word. Holloway leaned in, his voice lowering. "You think stalking her, lingering around like that would have impressed her?" The question hung in the air, and Evan's bravado began to crumble. "I didn't mean to scare her. It wasn't like that," he insisted, raising a hand defensively. "Then tell us what happened," Delaney urged, her brown eyes searching his. In that moment, Evan's defenses wavered. I saw her talking to someone. I saw her. It didn't look right." He had a real creeper vibe, you know? Holloway felt a shift. the fragmented pieces of a larger picture beginning to take shape. Look, Evan, if you know something, now is the time to speak. This isn't just about you anymore. Jessica's gone. We can help you if you help us. As the weight of their confrontation pressed in, Evan's frustration morphed into resignation. They said he was lurking near her house. I thought he was just a friend about to make a move. I didn't know what to do, so I avoided it. The shame in his voice deepened the shadows around them. Holloway recognized this moment for what it was. A potential seed of truth emerging from the weeds of fear and suspicion. Drawing on that thread, he pressed further, coaxing Evan to reveal every detail he might know about the mysterious figurine thing that could lead them to uncovering Jessica's fate. As Evan spoke, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, and Holloway felt the tension in the room shift toward a fragile hope-ion that fueled their determination to find the truth buried beneath layers of uncertainty. The trial. Months passed since the search for justice began, and now the day had finally arrived. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation, hushed conversations mingling with the shuffling of papers and the faint clinking of water glasses. For the Perkins and Coates families, time had seemed like an enemy, dragging them through the corridors of grief, while they awaited the outcome of the trial against Evan Cruz. He was charged with the murder of Jessica Coates, a weighty label that would either bring clarity or deepen their pain. As the gavel struck, silencing the crowd, Holloway took a seat at the back, a quiet observer of the very proceedings he had fought tirelessly to bring to fruition. The judge, a stoic figure whose presence commanded respect, set the tone for what lay ahead. Witnesses lined up, each bringing a voice to the silent echoes of the life Jessica had lived, and the void left in her absence. Emily Perkins took the stand first, her heart racing as she faced the courtesy of unfamiliar faces staring back in memoriam. As she recounted the last days she spent with Jessica, her voice shook with the weight of emotion. She was scared. She told me someone was following her. I wish I had listened more. She paused, the flood of memory overwhelming her. Just didn't deserve this. The prosecutor painted a vivid picture of Evan's troubled past and obsession with Jessica, close calls in the art room, the haunting presence in the shadows. They argued that the weight of his emotional turmoil had manifested into something irreversible, spiraling into violence that had snuffed out the spirit of a budding artist. Defense attorney Clara Jennings countered vehemently, attempting to dismantle the narrative of obsession. She portrayed Evan as a misunderstood youth, ensnared in a cycle of bad choices and poor judgments, a misguided artist himself, more lost than malicious. He never intended for any harm to come to Jessica, she asserted, casting the blame instead toward the unknown figure that Evan had described, painting him as the real villain lurking on the periphery of Jessica's world. As Holloway listened, his heart ached for the truth. They sought a truth that seemed suffocated beneath layers of speculation and blame. He recalled every detail of the investigation, the sacrifices made, and the emotional toll it had taken on everyone involved. When it was Evan's turn to testify, he shuffled onto the stand, shoulders hunched as if carrying the weight of the world. With each statement, he vacillated between frustration and sorrow, describing the presence he felt lurking near Jessica, unable to escape the spiral of his own tumult. I didn't want to hurt her. I just wanted to belong. I thought if I could just show her my art. His voice trailed off, suffocated by his simmering guilt, and the courtroom felt the flicker of his vulnerability, the young man despairing under the gaze of his own choices. The proceedings continued, punctuated by evidence-introduced text messages, art sketches that captured both anguish and beauty. Holloway observed the jury as they took in the weight of the drama before them, their expressions shifting with every poignant detail. And then came the relentless closing arguments, with both sides imploring the jury to embrace their narrative as the truth. Holloway clutched the armrest of his chair, uncertainty swirling. Would justice prevail, or would they be left traversing the same emotional labyrinth, forever seeking answers that might remain elusive? As the judge sent the jury to deliberate, the tension in the room intensified. Holloway could sense the communal breath held tightly within each soul present. This wasn't just a trial for Evan, it was a trial for Jessica's memory, an inquiry into the fabric of their tightly knit community, and ultimately, a reckoning for lost youth and extinguished dreams. When the jury finally returned, the courtroom bristled with anticipation. The gavel hit the bench, the moment frozen in time, and the verdict rang out, piercing through the weight of grief that had enveloped them all. The weight of justice was finally about to come crashing down. Whether it would bring solace or shatter illusions would remain to be seen. The aftermath. The gavel's resonant echo faded into silence, leaving an indelible mark on the hearts of everyone present in the courtroom. As the verdict pronounced guilty rippled through society's consciousness, the immediate reaction was a mixture of relief, anguish, and confusion. For the Perkins and Coates families, the resolution felt like a bittersweet conclusion to a chapter stained with loss. The weight of justice, though necessary, could never replace the vibrant spirit of Jessica. In the days following the trial, the community of Lawrenceburg was enveloped in a heavy blanket of introspection. Neighbors who once exchanged pleasantries on sunshine-kissed porches now lingered behind drawn curtains, their conversations hushed, fraught with the haunting memories of a life extinguished too soon. The school attempted to return to normalcy, but the enthusiasm felt forced. Hallways once filled with laughter now seemed to echo only the past, a reminder of the laughter that had been silenced. For Emily Perkins, the aftermath was particularly daunting. Guilt unfurled like a shadow every time she caught herself smiling or sharing a candid moment with friends, as if each instance was a betrayal of Jessica's memory. Art had always been a refuge, a medium for creativity and expression. After the trial, she poured herself into it, crafting pieces that merged sorrow with hope, reflecting the complexity of emotion she could hardly articulate. Jessica's spirit lingered in every brush stroke, a guiding force as Emily tried to navigate her grief. The Coates family, too, faced the waves of grief anew. Brenda and Alan spent countless nights reliving memories, flipping through old photo albums where Jessica's laughter leaped off the pages. In a desperate attempt to honor their daughter, they created a foundation dedicated to art education, hoping that no other child would be lost to senseless violence. They held fundraisers and community art shows. Each piece displayed a tribute to Jessica, beacon light to foster creativity and connection among young artists. Holloway followed the developments closely, feeling an unshakable commitment to the community he'd served. He watched as Jessica's foundation blossomed, bringing hope and healing as artists of all ages gathered to celebrate life through creativity. The detective helped organize workshops, fostering communication through art, creating safe spaces for expression, preventing the silence that had enveloped so many. But cracks remained in the fabric of Lawrenceburg, a community that would take years to mend. Some remained skeptical of Evan's guilt, questioning the jury's decision and whether they had fully comprehended the intricacies of his troubled psyche. Misguided rumors persisted, aiding Evan's defense narrative, Shadows stirred in conversations at coffee shops and casual meetups. As the seasons shifted and winter languidly surrendered to spring, a sense of revitalization swept through the town. They came together at Jessica's memorial, an event open to all. A canvas where each attendee contributed a small piece, transforming it into a stunning mural honoring Jessica's life. That day, the community found comfort in shared stories and a reprieve from solitary sorrow. Through the slow process of healing, Holloway realized that although justice had been served, it was compassion that would ultimately stitch together the fragility. The underlying truth remained: Jessica's life had been cherished, and now, through pain and legacy, she would continue to inspire. As long as her light persisted, a collective vow resonated, a commitment to remain vigilant against complacency, to embrace one another, and to never forget. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenge, but together they would keep the memory of Jessica alive, navigating the aftermath with the strength of community, hope, and the canvas of dreams yet to be painted. Reflection. Years later, as the winds of change began to sweep through Lawrenceburg, Holloway found himself in a contemplative mood, standing on the banks of the river that wound silently through town. The water glimmered under the midday sun, a gentle reminder of the passage of time. This serene location had often served as a separating line chasm between the past and the future that people so often travel. He thought back to the roller coaster of emotions that had engulfed the community since Jessica's death. The initial heartbreak transformed into outrage, and ultimately into healing. Even now, stories of Jessica's impact continued to circulate. The Art Foundation flourished and turned into a beacon of hope, fostering young talent while also honoring Jessica's legacy. Events at the foundation drew families together, and the art displayed spoke volumes of the resilience and creativity that could stem from tragedy. Through it all, the town had learned lessons of vigilance and compassion. They had woven a tapestry of memory that deserved to be cherished and safeguarded. As he reflected on the echoes of Jessica's laughter lingering in the hearts of those who remembered her, Holloway realized that justice was not an endpoint. It was merely a stepping stone toward a profound understanding that life was fragile, but also extraordinarily powerful. With a heart full of gratitude, he hoped that Jessica's story would pave the way for others to find their voices, that the shadows of the past could illuminate the path of the future. In the end, resilience and unity had triumphed, offering a sanctuary of solace where her memory could not just exist, but thrive.